right, so this is some audio from TAtech. It's a panel of HR people from, I think, GE, McLean, the French fry company, some trucking company, and I think Sharon Laube, the HR bartender. So check it out. Interesting discussion on how they use job boards, what they think of job boards, and other types of job search topics. So check it out. Moderated by Ethan Bloomfield, Vital Few, and also Tony Lee from Sherman.
All right, let's open it up. Those were a couple of my questions. Just raise of hands and I'll come around the room.
Jim, when you were talking about purchasing IP addresses, is that kind of the same thing as geofencing, or is that something different?
So it's finer than geofencing. So geofencing can be part of it, like when you're maybe targeting part of a campus, but I can get direct IP addresses too for folks that are registered, so registered engineers, registered nurses, anything like that that's licensed, and I can purchase that list from the licensing organization. I can get a home IP address. The technology that I use is so cool that it with some very good probability can tell if like a kid's online. Like they won't pitch my ads if there's, if you're a, I don't know, My Little Brony or whatever kids are into right now. So it won't pitch the ads there. It's very, very specific.
Well, now I encourage you to play.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is for G. You spent $3 million with job boards and got nothing. How are you tracking?
Well, and that was 5 years ago that we did that. And we basically tracked source of hire. But the thing is that we questioned and we tried out. We said, if we didn't spend anything, would we still get those hires anyways? And the answer became yes. We weren't short. We weren't, long or on time to hire. We didn't have applicants in those rec folders. We still had those applicants and we still had those candidates and we still got hires.
So let me ask you a question. One of the big problems that this room has is how you track source of hire.
Right.
You're relying on your ATS that may have a drop-down menu.
Totally.
So how do you overcome that problem?
So we have a couple of different ways that we track source of hire. There's 3 different ways that we run it through, but I'm not saying it's perfect at all. I have huge issues with source of hire. As I spoke earlier, to me it's about source of influence, and it's about a journey. So by no means do I say we have it down perfect, but at that time it was measured 3 different ways. One, from the actual source coming in, no human interaction. One from, I believe, the recruiter or hiring manager at the time. It may have changed. And then one from the candidate themselves.
Okay. I'm going to take you in just a second. Part of the way we wanted to do this was that we can also speak to each other, so I'm going to speak to you as much as to them. One other thing to consider that I've learned over the years of selling recruitment advertising is GE is often a bad example. They have a household name, literally, the household name. People don't have to come to us to find out that GE has job openings. They're probably just generally not a great prospect for us on traffic-related or candidate apply-related products. Walmart's another similar one. If you want to work at Walmart, you know where to go. You don't need us as often with really big brands if that's our product, right? So oftentimes we talk about how to do business with GE, but it's really not the right market for us. Do other people agree with that?
Correct.
But I would challenge that thought in the fact that the talent that I'm looking for isn't on job boards. They aren't looking for jobs.
That's what we do.
I'm sorry?
We're job boards.
Well, I'm saying...
Not everyone, but a lot of us.
I'm saying we might be a household name. That doesn't mean everybody wants to come work for us. Let's face it, we might be a household name that you curse at every day, right?
Right.
I mean, so I would just challenge it for the fact that, maybe we need to rethink this a little bit. Maybe the talent that I'm going after isn't there. That's why I'm not spending money there.
Yep, makes sense. Mike Timken.
Yes. Well, I agree with GE as far as your utilization of media and technology. You have a brand. The brand actually, if you have candidates who aspire to work for a company at some point in their lives, and you have multiple sources of influence, possibly starting when they're in high school, when they're most impressionable, and have people who at some time in their lives are going to want to work for certain companies, that is a very advantageous asset that maybe we in the job board business, I should say you in the job board business, I'm in recruitment marketing and an agency, but in the job board business, you really want to try to address in the future, especially as companies themselves look at more marketing components and are going to try to make their names just as visible in the pockets that, let's say, Jim is driving for McLean. Now, McLean is, to my knowledge, and there's probably more at the company than I don't know about, it's the biggest French fry company in the world, right? And if you go to McDonald's, you're eating McLean French fries. Correct, Jim?
I'm Jim.
I'm sorry, not Jim. Rodney, right?
Actually, McDonald's isn't one of our customers yet. So.
Not Jim.
No,
You're McCain and not McLean.
Oh, this McCain. I'm sorry. So they're in itself chocolate.
25% of the world's.
So I guess there itself is the difference between GE and McCain and McLean and a brand. Who needs direct response advertising from a job board, candidate generation, that possibly someone's applying for the job versus the candidate who's aspiring to work for the company?
I think that's the point.
Right.
So they should start chocolate-covered French fries.
Idea. He suggests chocolate-covered French fries to deal with the brand promise problem. Moving along.
We're right that one down.
I'm getting my exercise.
Can I just add one more thing while you walk
Please.
through there? Okay, so I have this thing, and you guys can call me out on it, but to me, I say that talent acquisition is no longer about jobs. Talent acquisition is about brand. We don't talk enough in those terms. And the story I always tell is, my grandfather worked for Chrysler, and he hated his job, hated it. But that was what he did. That was the job that he had, and he provided for his family. And my grandfather's amazing. My father, grew up wanting to be an engineer. He didn't think about what company he wanted to work for. He just knew he wanted to be an engineer. He was good at math and science. He didn't hate his job. He didn't really feel connected to it, right? I want to work for companies that have my same why. I want to work where I can make an impact on the world, right? And I know I'm putting us all in buckets, and it's not 100%. I totally get that. But I think we have to figure out a way to get to that thought process instead of about jobs.
I think that's a terrific point that one second, the Shift Gig speech that we had earlier, the gentleman who owns and founded Shift Gig was here, and he was showing us that he believes that people used to apply to companies and now jobs apply to people. I actually think we're still one step earlier than that. People used to apply to jobs, my generation. I think the new generation does apply to the company, and it's the Gen Y mentality about being part of something that has meaning. That's not always altruism, right? But it is being part of something. Sometimes that's a little startup in Minnesota, and sometimes that's part of a giant company, but it fits with what their cultural responses are. So I do think that you're right, that they're applying to companies more than jobs today. Go ahead, and then I'm going to take Mr. Terrier's.
The only thing that I would add there is, I've always felt as a human resources professional that my job was to be the architect of work. And my job was to create work and create jobs. So the jobs that I create are good or not so good. And that becomes a part of the brand. So, when you talk about jobs, you can create some really crappy ones, or you can create some ones that people, and there are lots of components that go into the definition of work.
And can I just add on real quick to what Shauna said? So what she's talking about, though, the majority of Americans are incapable of considering. And I say that because in order to really care about the why of where you work, you have to be self-actualized on Maslow's hierarchy. And the majority of Americans aren't. And that doesn't bother me, because the best employees, the ones that are able to make that difference, are able to really hit the bottom line, are truly self-actualized. Now, would I like to see a world where we're all self-actualized? Yes. Okay. I'd also like to see solid gold TVs in all my rooms and other things, so I'm not holding my breath on it. But this is the fundamental truth. But that self-actualization, those people that do really have the vested interest in the why are the ones that are going to make the difference at our company. Again, those are the ones I'm going to pay to go after.
And I take it one step farther and say that I respectfully agree and disagree, because I still need to fill jobs.
Yeah.
Period. Talent acquisition is about filling the jobs that need to get done in our company. We want to spread the message that we're more than some place that's going to hand you a paycheck every 2 weeks, and that's what we attempt to do with our branding effort. But at the end of the day, I still need to fill jobs.
Hello, friends. Thanks for coming out. I was hoping to shift away from inbound traffic and just kind of touch on and get your take on what you guys are doing regarding outbound sourcing efforts. In terms of not looking at applicants coming in, but you guys trying to find quality applicants, reach out to them, engage them, and hire them.
Who would like to go first?
I'll tell you that we're doing a lot on, like I said, on the branding and trying to sell our. So we hire truck drivers. Most truck drivers, when you think of truck drivers, you think of an over-the-road truck driver. That's somebody that goes from point A to point B, backs up, waits for a green light, goes to point C, backs up, waits for a green light. They're away from home a lot. They are typically out of shape because they eat greasy burgers on the way from one spot to the next. The drivers that I'm looking for are in great shape because we make them work. So we're trying to sell a message of what we're looking for. And, oh, by the way, I've got a lot of them that make $110,000, $120,000 a year. So they've gone through a 10-week program to learn how to drive a truck, and they can make a great living. We're trying to brand that as more than, we're trying to break out of what you typically see as a driver. So we're doing a lot of the marketing and the different differentiating type advertising efforts. And we still do this nasty thing called headhunting, where I actually want my recruiters to go out and target the best for my competitors. That died at some point. I blame Google, because I like to blame them for everything. But I don't know when it stopped happening, but we still do that.
Yeah, I'd say, I'm a little old school, so I do rely on a lot of headhunting. I have come to my office, I'll pull up on my laptop, I'll show you the org charts of all my competitors. I'll show you the people that I'm targeting based on the results I know they're producing. So we have that. It's a phone call away. It's not hard to do. IP targeting is outbound, and we'll continue to harp on that. And then what we do is a lot of, what we're starting to do right now is a lot of sort of guerrilla work. And what I mean by that is we're going out to places like colleges. So if you look at the chemical industry, it's a lot of dudes that look like me, white dudes, right? I mean, that are in our tech positions, that are in our leadership positions, and we want to increase our diversity and really work on it. So we're going out to schools, we're busing students in so they can come spend time at our plants, if that's what's local, or our other facilities, so they can see, feel, and talk to people and feel like that they're part of our community for reals, not fake part of our community because they're in some talent corral that we created, but actually feel like they know us.
So one thing we've done a lot of as far as tools is look at more things that are open web sourcing and not specific to one network or another. I think another thing is just, again, as I mentioned right at the beginning, is just thinking outside of the box. Not having really any career events anymore. Instead, running a hackathon and making sure we're getting the people funneled into the audience or tagged to the place that they possess that programming language or whatever skill it might be. Really trying to think outside the box a little bit in that sourcing, because again, most of the time we're going after talent, they're already happy working somewhere else. And, to the point earlier, we're not a consumer brand. We don't have appliances anymore. So GE is a little bit misunderstood too, and most of the time what I'm going after right now is my software engineers and my IT and really where a lot of other people are going after, right? And so to do that, we have to paint that picture way far ahead of time and just hopefully be in that person's brain as a place that they want to work. And, to that point too, and I guess I'll go back to my why, we're really trying to be better about telling our why as a company and our people telling their why and being able to say, this is why I do what I do at GE, because somebody's going to connect to that out there and want to be a part of it. And then the one last point is the women in technology. Part of it has to do with education early on, and so we'll go into schools and not even talk about GE, but just kind show like a cool thing that a girl can do that's not just a mathematician sitting behind a desk all day. And I think that's part of it, and really where we have to be in order to change the future that way. And I think sourcing is a big part of the future because it's going to be the talent that we all need.
Charlie,
The only thing that I would add, and nobody's really brought it up, is a lot of the companies that I work with are talking about their employee referral programs. And they're talking about, how do we breathe some new life into this, and how do we keep it alive so that it just doesn't become this thing, because the results are great, but how do we keep it alive and keep it fresh? So a lot of companies talking about employee referral programs.
Tony and Peter, you guys really put together a great panel. These people are enlightened, are thinking about things, and they don't sound anything like my customers. But guys, what I do hear is messaging, right? There's been so many conversations about how we help our clients improve their messaging because they're not generally as enlightened about their brand and about what sells high-quality job applicants. So that's the thought that I'm getting from the group, that we should be helping our clients who are not generally as enlightened with their messaging within our applications. I saw a hand up over here.
Yeah. You guys are awesome. Thank you. One of the more enjoyable panel discussions I've seen in a long time. So the question is specifically for Shonda. You spent a lot of time building an army brand evangelists, 13,000. It sounds like you're using these at just the top of the funnel. So do you think you can employ this workforce to help you nurture and grow these leads and ultimately close, and even to an extent replace some of your recruiters' efforts so that the people that are doing the hard sales, the ones that are actually in the teams that you're trying to get new candidates to join?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal. We haven't done very well with it yet. One of the places where we just started using them was even having, a look for women in technology to make sure we have a brand ambassador in that room or in on that interview, even if it's not a part of the team, right? To make sure it's somebody that is going through the day and life of that person is. So I definitely think there's a lot of places where that can plug in, right? Not just the top of the funnel. I think we've only scratched the surface. It's, again, gritting it out and getting it done. So hopefully we have a lot more opportunity that we can go. I love it. It's a great thought.
One of the best way to recruit truckers.
I'm listening.
Not selling. I read a study that said everybody's offering the $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's not the most important thing. It was the seat, the chair that goes into the truck. Having the most custom best chair was the most important thing to attracting drivers. Who's next?
I actually have a question. Something we were talking about yesterday. Amazon's become famous for automating almost all aspects of their recruiting to the point where there are a number of positions that they hire for where they never meet a person. It's all done online. Are you guys moving in that direction?
Absolutely not. Here's the difference, and we are butting up against Amazon, and they're a great company. You know what? I ordered my daughter a phone thing. What's it called? Case. There you go. Big word. A phone case yesterday before I went to bed, and I used Amazon to do it. The difference is they've taken kind of a different approach when it comes to talent, and we don't care how long you're here, and we really don't care if you do that great of a job. Just fill the shift, and we'll replace you when we need to. I'm not lying to you. That's really the approach they're taking. It's a commodity approach. And, okay, remember this is the same company that had warehouse teammates signing non-competes. What? They've got a totally different approach. They want to automate it, great, because they can have what's left. That's not
For me, I want to automate more and more of the tactical pieces that the recruiters have to do. I don't think that the job of recruiter is going to go away in the next 10 to 15 years. I think it's going to evolve and be more strategic, and that's what we need. We needed to have a higher business impact. That being said, since you're all technology whizzes and everything, if anybody wants to automate me on my job, I will fully support you. I'll let you run the beta on me. There are right now trout being caught somewhere that are not being caught by me, so therefore you're doing me a service.
Yeah, so, tell me the question again. I got caught up in the trout.
Automation.
Okay.
Automation and
Yes.
process.
Yeah. Okay, so, I think that's the thing I would say, right? Along the same lines is that if we're not working recruiters out of jobs, it's just the stuff that's repeatable can be automated, and it allows recruiters to then be candidate experience, heroes, and actually have that human interaction. Because I would think there's places that human interaction cannot be automated. One thing I'd just like to note there, though, is to really think about where people want to connect. I'll tell you what, if you recruited me and I didn't want to talk to a person, I would be excited. I hate talking on the phone. I hate meetings. I think I may be an introvert at heart. I don't know. But the thing is, it's like we've got to help, or not only with that, but help learn how candidates want to communicate, if it's through automation or whatever, and I'd be able to provide that customized experience to them.
Kelly, any thoughts?
I would just add that this is a big part of the contingent workforce. I'm a consultant. I have clients I have never met and that I've never spoken to on the phone. We do all of our communication via email, and so if I can do that, then it can be done. And so I think that when we talk about contingent workers, that could be definitely a part of the strategy.
And local teams. I mean, I have a lot on my team. I've never met them, and and it's totally fine.
In your automation, one thing to consider, and we get a lot of direct candidate feedback because we start their journey in many of our cases, is the black hole that they go into. That excess capacity I was talking about before is part the ATS and part the reliance on technology to reply, but it's also part the humans not making sure we let candidates know where they're at in the process, and they come back to us, as often many of us initiate that journey for that job seeker, and then ask us why GE, who they applied to 37 times, hasn't replied to them positively or negatively. It would be great for you guys to be looking at technologies and then human interactions that help us who initiated the journey for the job seeker to make sure that the end of that journey is what they expected. No, you don't qualify for this X, Y, and Z reason. Thank you for your application. We'll keep you in mind. But they complain to us so often about what they call the black hole. It would be really good for you guys to spend time really thinking about that part of the experience as well.
Can I just add something there?
Sure.
I grew up in hotels, theme parks, and airlines. So anybody who... Everybody who applied for a job could buy the product. And learn very quickly that you never want to lose a candidate and a customer at the same time. And I just cannot say enough times. I've had people thank me for a rejection letter. And it wasn't a fancy, I've been here for the past 2 days and people have been talking about really crappy written rejection letters. And I've written plenty of them. But I guess the point is just to bring closure helps. It really does help a lot, but we're getting to the point where you can lose your customers at the same time, and it needs to be addressed.
And I'll add to that. I think sometimes the automation adds to the terrible experience. Yep. We actually turned off all our automated emails with our ATS a couple months ago. Freaking scary. And it sucks. We are not providing a good customer experience or candidate experience, but it's helping us, and we're training our recruiters on how they need to respond. And again, I think the automation, that then lends itself to more time for that candidate experience, whether it's a rejection or where you're at in the status.
That's a great idea. What better way to get the answers from the candidate experience than to stop doing the experience? Great. I love it.
It gives us a great opportunity when you close the loop, but there's a call to action. So I learned a valuable lesson when I was younger and poorer, that every time you applied for Domino's, you got something free from Domino's. It was back then. I applied for probably 5 jobs a week.
And you never went hungry.
At Domino's, the cheese stick, wings, whatever. Like, it was awesome. So that stuck with me, was that, look, that built an affinity for Domino's with me that still shows to this day. And so, when I've worked for retail brands that do interact with the public, we always think about that and have a call to action. So it's thanking them sincerely for taking the time to consider us. But since you took that time, would you also consider this if we gave you a little hand to buy a vacuum cleaner if it was Bissell, or to buy a Red Baron frozen pizza if it was Schwann's, or whatever. So.
Great. All right, you remembered. I got a new question. All right, Faith.
Hi, so I work with a lot of those entry-level people you're talking about. We work with helping companies hire college students and recent grads. And I think every day I talk to, especially now that my kids are also of that age, every day I'm counseling and talking to kids about how to go about looking for a job. And part of our business is a job board. And I say you have to apply on job boards because it's part of the process, but it doesn't stop there. So the hardest thing is this part that Ethan's talking about, where if we could find a way somehow to work together to make sure that we're getting back to these kids, these students, there's so many that end up with no answers. They don't know where to look. I talk to them a lot about networking, about reaching out to people other than the human resource people, and using that good old-fashioned networking I did before there were, much computer. It certainly wasn't any internet. So it's, I don't know if you guys can think of any solutions to some of that, but you can turn off your automation, but then people have to really do it. Or you can say it's important to get back to them, but if you don't, we're affecting lives with each of those things, right? I think you're right. A rejection letter is much better to know and be done and move on.
I did a research study a few years ago because I believe that when the rejection comes, it comes from a person, do not reply at, but it actually comes from the person that made that decision. That's really important to me, and we're working to implement that right now at Celanese. But the reason is it comes from a person, and it has their contact information. And I remember when I first started playing around with this, my peers told me how stupid I was for this and multiple reasons, but for this one particularly, because they're like, you're just going to get flooded with emails and calls of people disagreeing with you, because I started doing this during the recession. And I will tell you, I've done this for a long time, and that's not true. I actually am disappointed by how few people reach out to me after that rejection. But any person that's ever reached out to me with questions, I will take the time to answer their questions. And if it's something like that their resume is bad or they're not explaining their experience, I will take the time, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday or an evening, to work with them to help fix that. That's just, to me, that's just a karma thing, right?
I would say, as an HR person, it's always been a strategic objective of the HR department to be a part of the local community, and that meant going to colleges, going to high schools, talking about job opportunities, talking about career development, because those people are eventually going to show up at my place of employment and apply for a job. So I think that there's a certain amount of, you owe it to your profession to do those things, and hopefully people are doing them.